nous allons commencer avec le procès-verbal de la réunion.
We're going to begin with minutes from the last meeting. Are there any questions or comments?
One? No? Okay. Number two, the business arising from previous meetings. Is there any questions? Est-ce qu'il y a des questions là-dessus?
Any questions on that?
OK. C'est bon. Item number three, numéro 3, Bureau de la traduction, resource utilization for simultaneous interpretation. Nos intervenants sont Madame...
Our speakers are Ms. Nathalie Laliberté and Matthew Ball.
Madame Laliberté.
Ms. Laliberté.
I'll let you do your presentation, and I'm sure we'll have a few questions once we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Translation Bureau, I'm happy to be here along with Matthew Ball, Vice President, Service to Parliament and Interpretation. Please note that the new CEO will be appointed in the coming weeks. Honorable members of the board, I would like to begin by assuring you that we fully understand how important the availability of quality interpretation is for Parliament to run smoothly, and how the shortage of interpreters not only impedes your meeting, but makes it difficult to respect language rights. The Bureau is proud to have been able to provide an essential services since the beginning of the pandemic. Our on-site interpreters responded to a 20% increase in demand for interpretation services in the House of Commons, despite a 25% reduction in capacity due to a decrease in the number of suppliers. That said, we're making every effort to cover more events. We're looking at every possible option to address the labor shortage, and we're continuing to take decisive action to ensure that we have more interpreters available by the beginning of the next parliamentary session. Given their varying availability and the services they must also provide to the Senate, the Privy Council Office, and other clients such as the Public Order Emergency Commission, our complement of approximately 70 staff and 60 freelance interpreters assigned to Parliament can currently cover 57 House Committee meetings per week. Nous connaîtrons d'ici les fêtes.
We will know the results of our recent accreditation exam by the holidays and will offer a job or a contract to all successful candidates. We are currently in discussions with procurement and security screening authorities to expedite the onboarding process, so that these new interpreters can begin serving the House as soon as January 30th. In addition, we are working with the House administration to enable interpreters located outside parliamentary facilities to provide interpretation. This is a new service, so there are contractual and operational details to be ironed out. But by the next session, we expect we'll be able to provide off-site interpretation for 2 events per day, as requested by House administration. While increasing our capacity, we continue to improve occupational health and safety for our interpreters, which remains our priority. Still, the best way to protect interpreters is to ensure that all meeting participants use proper microphones, a precaution that also reduces service interruptions. To this end, we request your cooperation in making the use of proper microphones mandatory.
Les conditions de travail des
Working conditions for interpreters are difficult, as incident reports from the last 2 years show. The more we improve conditions together, the better interpreters will be able to meet the needs of Parliament by providing the quality interpretation services that you have come to expect and that you and the Canadian public deserve. Thank you again for your support, your understanding, and your patience. Thank you also to our interpreters, Claire, Sharon, and Tara. Matthew and I are now available to answer your questions.
Questions, commentaires?
Questions or comments?
Madame de Bellefeuille.
Ms. de Bellefeuille. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day, Ms. Laliberté, and welcome to the Board of Internal Economy. I have a number of questions for you. You sent us a letter, the last correspondence we received from you, Could you remind me what date that was sent? I don't have the letter in front of me.
Je vais vous dire, la lettre a été...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The letter was signed on November 30th, 2022. I'm not sure if you're in the practice of not dating your letters, but you didn't date that letter when you sent it to us. But you're telling me that you have the date of November 30th? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's when the letter is signed electronically, the date is affixed to it. Usually we also add the date. I take full responsibility. That was a matter of forgetfulness. Mr. Chair, you know that I'm someone very sincere, as the other members of the board know. And I'm concerned about the time it took for you to reply to the letter we sent you at the end of September. Because at this committee, we have been discussing this subject for so many months. It is a priority for us, and we have had difficulty understanding the delays on your end. And to this day, we do not understand how we are going to be able to serve a hybrid parliament with over 57 events. And we're trying to understand how you organize your workforce. And I am still dissatisfied with your answers. So I heard in your opening remarks that you're going to inform us more on this. And I read that in your letter you're telling us that with these new interpreters who will sit their exam, you hope that by January 30th you will be able to increase from 57 to 59 events.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Il y avait plusieurs questions dans vos propos. Tout d'abord, par rapport au temps que ça a pris pour répondre à la lettre, on a pris le temps de vraiment analyser et de prendre le temps de répondre aux questions de façon adéquate. Le Bureau de la traduction a plusieurs priorités. Les deux principales présentement sont la continuité de nos services, fournir l'interprétation et la traduction auxquelles vous avez droit. Et la deuxième priorité est bien sûr la santé et sécurité de nos interprètes. En parallèle, on a d'autres initiatives comme augmenter la relève en interprétation, faire des projets de recherche justement pour augmenter la santé et sécurité, tout ça. Donc, le temps, on a répondu le plus rapidement possible à la lettre. En ce qui a trait, excusez-moi, là.
Je vous ai demandé si, dans votre note d'allocution, vous nous dites qu'avec la correction des examens, toutes les enquêtes de sécurité, que vous êtes confiant, vous avez pris l'engagement à la demande de la Chambre de couvrir 2 événements de plus par jour. Actuellement, nous avons 57 événements. Et là, vous prenez l'engagement que dès le 30 janvier, nous serons capables de couvrir avec vos services 59 événements. Est-ce que c'est ça que je comprends?
Donc, les 2 événements de plus, c'est ce que l'interprétation en mode dispersé va permettre. Donc, avec des interprètes qui ne seront pas situés dans les enceintes du Parlement. Donc, ça va être 2 événements de plus. Par rapport au processus d'accréditation, il va y avoir...
In terms of the accreditation process, there'll be other resources again who will be available to serve Parliament as of January the 30th. So at the minimum, there'll be 59, but we're talking about 57 committees. We're going to provide availability that we have to the House administration and the Senate administration, and they will determine their priorities, whether it'll be committees or caucuses or anything else. We will provide the availability that we have at this time. I'm not sure I understood correctly, Chair. Are you undertaking to provide 59 with new resources? Are you already in a position, even if you don't yet have the results of the new interpreters who would have passed the exam, whether they will choose to work for the House of Commons or committees or anywhere else? Are you currently making a commitment to add 2 more events per day? Chair, if I could clarify. The 2 additional events are interpreters who are already accredited by the Bureau, but who do not work for Parliament currently because they are outside the National Capital Region and they did not want to travel here. So these are people who are already accredited. This does not include in the 59 the people whose exams we are currently correcting, who are part of the accreditation process. These people are already accredited. So I have a question, Chair. How is it that only today, because the Board of Internal Economy asked for a pilot project last spring, and when you wrote your letter on November the 30th, you said, if there is demand. Now, I had understood that you misunderstood the original request, that you were only beginning to arrange a pilot project, whereas we had asked and authorized this since May with remote interpreters who were accredited. And now you're saying if it's been requested. Is there confusion? We've been expecting this for a while. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. We've been waiting to have events added by interpreters who are working remotely. How is it not already in place? Because we have been requesting this. We gave a mandate for this to the administration to work on this as of last spring. Thank you, Chair. We've worked together with the House administration to implement this project. There were tests conducted. In terms of the confusion or communication problems, they wanted to know how many we could do, and we were waiting for them to tell us how many they needed. But it was ultimately clarified. We sent out a call to determine which freelancers were interested. And I can confirm that we will be able to meet the needs of the House, which requested 2 events per day in addition to what we had said. So that's as of when Parliament resumes until the end of the parliamentary session in June. Last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Is it usual to create there's a trend to create informal committee meetings where we receive international delegations, for example. And often the clerks or the chairs find themselves with no interpreter resources, and they decide to maintain their activity. Does this mean that the additional resources that you were referring to with your remote interpreters or with the new people coming on stream, will they be able to maintain all of the activities of the House of Commons committees, informal meetings? What capacity are you going to be able to increase in addition to the 2 events, because there are going to be new interpreters having passed the exam and who are currently being hired? How many more will you be able to cover? Thank you, Chair. In terms of how many more, we're completing the corrections of the accreditation exam. We've nearly completed it. By the end of the week or next week, it will be completed. In terms of the accreditation exam, I can tell you that this is a rather complex exercise. There are 30-minute recordings per candidate. The team has to look at fluidity, vocabulary, is the message clear, etc. We had 69 candidates who sat the exam. Of the 69, I'd like to manage expectations. 21 have come from foreign countries, and 8 people are already bureau interpreters. So new Canadians, there are 40 who have passed the accreditation exam as corrected. I don't want to give any figures today because I want to wait until the process is complete, until we calibrate everything before we can give you the actual numbers. But I can tell you that we will have more interpreters offering services as of the next parliamentary session. The people who will be accredited will, if they want to work for us, of course, they will receive the author of a contract. As I said in my opening remarks, we're working on the security screening process and the contracting process. We're confident that this will move forward. We'll have onboarding conversations to have them visit the parliamentary facilities and have them visit the Parliament. These are the steps that are in place, and we will expect to have more interpreters. But it's up to House administration and Senate administration to determine how the additional capacity will be applied and for what sorts of events it will be applied. Thank you. I'll come back to you during the second round if necessary. We can continue with Mr. Julian. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madame La Liberté. The work that you do is extremely important, and we're impressed with the devotion and professionalism of the interpreters who are working in the House of Commons. And of course, we want their health and safety to be assured at all times. And we also want to be sure that we can respond to the resource shortage that we have. There is an overload of work for interpreters, which is of concern to us. I would like to get back to the issue of the candidates. You said that there were 21 candidates who are outside Canada. Were these candidates solicited? Were they encouraged to apply and to take the exam? Thank you, Chair. Before holding our certification exams, we advertise through all kinds of social media and professional associations, etc. Yes, these people are solicited. They will be corrected. We work with colleagues from other government departments to see how we could hire or offer contracts. But as you may know, hiring people from abroad is a laborious exercise. Many things have to be done before you can have people on site. This will not happen before the next parliamentary session. It could take up to a year before being able to hire them or have contracts with people from abroad. This is why we correct them after. So how many of our interpreters currently working? How many come from outside of Canada? I'd ask Mr. Ball if he has the answer to that question. I cannot answer that question accurately. I would have to go through our human resource records to see what the exact number. You're talking about staff interpreters? But the procedure would be as for any other organizations. They pass the exam, and then there is a labor market application, then an immigration application, which is what would be done for any other company or area that's dealing with a shortage with specialized work. Is this why we're talking about at least a year before these individuals could begin to work here? If I could answer, yes, it is complex. The hiring process for nationals or foreign nationals is complex. It goes beyond the mandate and decisions of the Bureau. As Madame La Liberté has said, we work together with other departments, but it's complex and it takes a long time. Thank you. Now, if I understood correctly, 33 candidates out of 40 who are not currently working for the Translation Bureau and are on Canadian soil have passed the exam? No. You talked about 33 and 40. I have to be very careful with figures because afterwards, no. I did not tell you how many passed the certification exam. We can't give you the figure of how many passed the accreditation exam. What I did say is that of the 69 who took the exam, 8 are already Bureau interpreters in-house. So they were on probation and training. And 40 are Canadian residents. So of the 69, the maximum pool would be 40. I did not give any figures of how many actually passed the exam. But of the 33 candidates assessed to date, I would say that Canadian residents have already been corrected. The ones who are in-house were already corrected, and now we are doing those from foreign countries. We've nearly finished. I understand your hesitation to give a figure, but for our planning, can I presume that of the 33 evaluated, all 33 passed? No. Well, what's the percentage of failure? Well, right now I have to trust my team and the jury that is correcting the exams. By next week, we should be in a position of giving you the exact number of people who passed the exam. Right now, we have 3 pools: the people who we know have passed, those who really did not, and in the middle, they're being assessed to see what quality standards should apply, because we don't want you to call us back next year or the year after to complain that the quality isn't there. So we want to be sure that the accredited interpreters are qualified to do the job that you have a right to have done. Yes, I understand that, and thank you very much. But you understand that if we're talking about these 33, that maybe 3 passed, the issue is very different from if we're talking about 25 out of 33 who have passed. Because right now, we are trying to plan for end of January, where demand is going to be much greater. For the time being, we don't quite understand all the stages. We understand that it's difficult in terms of assessment, and then there's the security component. And of course, for a candidate coming from abroad, that's a whole other complex process. But when you talk about 2 additional events per week, you're assessing how many additional interpreters in those cases?
Donc, les 2 événements,
Mr. Chair, I mentioned 2 events. Those will be virtual events. So the interpreters will not be in Ottawa, and that has nothing to do with the evaluation process. Regarding the number of events we'll be able to take on after the exam results, we'll have to wait in the coming weeks to see how many interpreters passed. Generally, for a 2-hour committee, 3 interpreters are required. Interpreters generally work 2 committees per day, but it depends on the length of that committee, etc. In general, as I said, 3 interpreters to a committee, 2 committees per day. And we will be able to add on 2 additional committee meetings with the virtual interpreting. Now, those who pass the exam will be offered a contract or a job, and we still don't know how many days per week they will be working. We will see that in the next weeks. Yes, I understand all of that. However, we're still looking for answers because we're looking to see what we'll be capable of accommodating at the end of January. And we still really don't know what the interpreter availability will be. So knowing how many interpreters will have passed the exam and knowing what the employment decisions of those individuals will be is something we need to know. So I still don't see clearly what we're going to be able to do with the new interpreters come the end of January. So we would like more data so we can have a better idea of how many interpreters we'll have at the end of January. The more information you can give us, the better it is for us. Our committee has been discussing this matter for months, and we still do not have the answers we're looking for. Thank you very much for trying to answer today. Thank you, Chair.
Avec Monsieur McKinnon.
We're going to continue, Mr. McKinnon. Welcome, Ms. Laliberté, Mr. Ball, the TB team. I won't repeat all of the good questions from my colleagues here. But you know, at the end of the day, we're looking to accommodate the needs of the Parliament of Canada, and the needs are increasing. We understand the difficulties in the working conditions, health and safety concerns at work, and the worker shortage. These are all reasons why we're in the situation we're in. My question is simple. Do you have confidence that we will be able to accommodate the ever-increasing demands of the Parliament of Canada, as well as the Translation Bureau's other demands? And will we be able to continue to grow and grow our capacity? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have confidence that we will have new interpreters by the end of January. Will there be enough of them to meet all of the demands? Probably not, because there really is an interpreter shortage in Canada. There are very few graduates every year. Only 2 universities offer a graduate program in interpreting in Canada. But we are not giving up, and everyone who passes a program will be invited to join us at the Bureau to partake in an internship and to prepare to sit the accreditation exam. We will also be holding an open door event in January to invite the translators we also have at the Translation Bureau, to invite them to look at becoming an interpreter. We will know more in January, but we still don't know if we will have enough interpreters to meet the demand. We do have to be realistic. There is a worker shortage. But what you just mentioned are new initiatives into recruiting for interpretation. Yes, that's right. You mentioned 2 programs just now. Could there rather be other ways to meet the need? Is there enough demand, for example, for other universities to start training interpreters? Thank you, Mr. Chair. A very good question. Yes, there is a group of universities looking into this possibility of whether there should be more interpretation programs in the country. We're all trying to establish the next generation of interpreters. Now we'll have to see how it can be done. We sincerely hope that we will have a larger pool of interpreters to be able to serve you. I think we all have the same objective. The more interpreters we have, the better we can serve you. And without skimping on quality. Yes, quality is our first priority, and that will not change. Ms. Laliberté, here at our committee, all we're looking for is to be comforted, for you to comfort us and tell us that you have a plan, that you're executing a plan that will address the Parliament of Canada's needs and the other needs that you have to satisfy. We have confidence in you, but we have to follow this very closely because, as you know, Parliament of Canada cannot sacrifice any services required to meet its official languages obligations. Could you comment on that? Can you tell us how much of a priority this is for you? And do you have confidence in being able to deliver? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are confident we will be able to increase our capacity. As mentioned, quality is one of our important criteria. And we're sparing no effort to try and stimulate a next generation of interpreters, to try to persuade people to join a training program. And for example, at the accreditation exam this year, we tried to attract the most candidates possible. We worked together with Glendon University in Toronto to attract candidates and to hold training sessions, and we hope that those sessions will have helped those candidates succeed when they set the exam. And if so, this will help us to increase our capacity. It is one of our greatest priorities. And for distance interpreting, what can you tell us about that? Is it possible without sacrificing quality? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So long-distance interpreting does have risks when it comes to sound quality. It is therefore imperative for speakers participating by distance use an appropriate microphone. For example, headsets with a boom mic or other microphones that are appropriate for this type of event. That is extremely helpful in decreasing interpretation interruptions, but also ensuring interpreters' health and safety. We are working together with House administration to ensure the best conditions possible so that these conditions are adequate both for interpreters and participants. Can you give us some, you've given us some encouraging news for the beginning of next year. I'll say again, we will be following this very closely as the year goes on, and thank you for your efforts.
Madame de Bellefeuille.
Ms. de Bellefeuille. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have another quick question for you, Ms. Laliberté, in closing. We know that House administration, in cooperation with all party whips, have worked hard to raise awareness among members of the importance of using the headset. I think this changed the game, and most MPs now do use the headset. We're also following the situation with witnesses, and we're very rigorous in raising awareness among witnesses and MPs because it really is the tool that can guarantee our interpreters' health and safety. Recently, I learned that we share the same pool of interpreters as the Senate. And during our study, we realized that the Senate does not have the same practices we do when it comes to the use of headsets and carrying out tests and pre-tests before meetings. We have been very rigorous. We always ask at the beginning of every meeting to the chair if tests have been carried out. And we know that there are serious risks of for interpreters regarding this. Can you tell us more about how the Senate can align itself more and develop practices that better respect our interpreters' health and safety? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Our relationship with the Senate administration is excellent. We cooperate together. We often hold meetings together with House and Senate administration. Best practices are shared with the Senate administration. And it is up to senators and clerks to put them into action. But I can tell you that it is a very strong relationship. Thank you. I have one last question. Ms. Laliberté, we know that if we don't encourage our people to wear headsets and to follow best practices, then clerks have to do so. We need a very, very concerted team effort to work together and to work for the better of our interpreters. As you know, the Board of Internal Economy wrote to the Senate to try and protect interpreters while they're doing their work. I don't want to get too distracted by numbers, but let me tell you what I've understood, and you can correct me. I understand that you have made serious efforts to increase capacity. There was a pilot project that was set up with accredited interpreters, and that will go towards those 2 additional meetings that will be able to take place after January 30th. And it's up to the administration of the House to decide where those 2 events will be allocated. Is that right? Yes. So at this time, you are preparing to supply 2 additional events per day, but you have no indication where these people will work, whether it's at caucuses, in committees, etc. Has the House administration asked you anything in particular? I just want to confirm with my colleague. The Translation Bureau is working together with House administration. It's not the Translation Bureau who decides where the interpreters are assigned. We are responding to requests by the House administration. We will send interpreters where they are needed. Thank you. Perfect. Now I'd like to better understand why 2 additional events and what the House administration's choices will be. So new interpreters sitting the exam, and I share my colleague Mr. McKinnon's positive outlook. But from what I understand, there will be a number of the number who sat the exam who will pass the exam, and those who were close might be able to be trained to pass the exam. So there is a pool. And once these individuals will have been accredited, we still don't know if they'll want to work at committees or in Parliament. They might choose somewhere else for their career than here with us. Am I wrong?
Chair, no, you're absolutely correct. People can decide to work in Parliament or elsewhere. They would also give us their availabilities according to what they prefer to do. We will know this beginning in early January. So in early January, if at our first Board of Internal Economy meeting of 2023, we ask a question about your capacity and an actual figure, which we've been looking for months, will you be able to tell us in early January? I can assure 2 more events with my remote interpreters and with my additional ex-interpreters who have passed the exam and who have chosen to work here. This is what I can provide. Is this something that you're going to be able to tell us? Chair, yes. And to say that, does the administration have to give you a very specific question for you to be able to give a specific answer in terms of the capacity? Chair, the way that we work currently is that we offer the capacity that we have. We work with the administration of the House and of the Senate at the same time, and we say this is our capacity, and the administrations decide what events will take place with interpreting. That's how we function to date. I don't know if you're aware of this, but we've asked the House administration to model for us a hybrid parliament functioning up to midnight in addition to committees. How much extra capacity would this require? Have you begun to think about this kind of model? Chair? If I may answer the question, one of the problems that we have in order to determine the availability of resources is, as you've said, when somebody passes a certification exam or an accreditation exam, they are available to provide services for us and they're eligible to provide services. But to know how many days, how many hours, whether they'll be doing this full time, we have had conversations with when we will have conversations with all of the candidates who pass to find out if they want to work even as staff interpreters, to be hired as permanent employees. So there's a lot that's out of our hands, but we do everything possible, of course, to encourage them. And I think that in the sector, in the industry, people are aware of the urgent need of the Parliament. And we hope to be able to encourage them to provide services as much as possible, whether as freelance suppliers or as staff and permanent employees. But we don't have specific figures. But my question is quite specific, Mr. Ball. Today, let's say there's an exploratory debate. Let's say the House sits late. There are committees. Without cutting anything, how many interpreters are there today? How many are working today? It's rather mathematical, isn't it? What I want to know is when the government decides that we're going to be sitting until midnight, I don't want to have committee meetings cut. So what I want to know is what's the magic number so that every day we don't have to cut anything. So today, this is an exploratory debate. The House is going to sit until 10 p.m. and we have committees. How many interpreters do we need to cover the full day now? If you don't know the answer, live, it's not dramatic, but I would like to receive this information in writing, Chair. Chair? Demand varies on a daily basis. It depends on what's happening in Parliament. The availability of our freelance interpreters also varies from day to day. We ask freelancers to give us their availability for a 6-month period. Some do so. Others prefer to give us their availabilities on a month-by-month basis. So with health and safety incidents that we've had, we have employees who have modified duties. They've seen doctors and we have to assign them elsewhere. And that can change from week to week as well. So to have a magic number on a regular basis is not possible because it can vary from one day to the next, depend on demand. On Monday is very different from Wednesday, and based on the availability of our resources, every day is different. I'm going to try a last time, and then I'll stop. I just don't understand what you're saying. Today, you're able to tell me how many interpreters are working? Today, yes. And probably for the end of the week, yes. But if you ask me in a month on what day, how many will there be needed, we have to know which interpreters are available for that day. I'll stop there, Chair.
Maybe I'll ask a couple of questions, if that's okay. I'll take the prerogative of the chair. And I'm really uncomfortable asking this question because it's a question that almost would be asked of management if we were running the organization, but we're receiving a service. I'm going to say, I'd like to say we're purchasing the service, but the service is paid for by Service Canada, or not Service Canada, but procurement. And you're responsible for providing that service. So you're responsible for the employees. We're here, we're asking for translation. And by law, we're entitled to it, or it's something that has to be given to us so that people can basically do the job they have to do. So we're technically, indirectly buying a service from your organization. We're not employing individual translator, correct? Very good. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that so that it's not the House of Commons or the Senate who is hiring the translators, and then this isn't working. So, and the questions I have pertain to management employees. When I'm buying a service, it's not for me to say, okay, to Bell Canada, well, I don't like the way you're installing the fiber in this neighborhood, and I won't, like, what I can say is I won't buy your service and go to another. We don't have that luxury right now. Or maybe we do, I don't know. We looked at different options, but we didn't find that. So my question to you is, about your employees, about the employees that are basically the service that we're buying. Now, I understand that they've cut back, they've reduced their hours on a daily basis, and I understand there's extra stress there. And in interpreting the capacity, that's a challenge that I think we all have to face with a lot of things, not only the members, but the interpreters. What criteria needs to be met, or what has to be done so that we can resume the hours of operation for the service that we're indirectly purchasing from you? I mean, what is missing
So
other than interpreters?
yeah, we need more interpreter. I need a baby factory interpreter.
And again, the reduced hours that the interpreters are working. That's something that you look at, and I don't want to burn anyone out, but on the other hand, we need that service.
So in terms of hours of interpretation, thank you for the question. So the pre-pandemic hours, so when Parliament was in person, if members of committee or members of the board, if everyone was in person, including witnesses, we could go back to pre-pandemic hours. The reality is that now we're living in a hybrid mode, so it's very, very rare that you would have a meeting where everyone would be in person. So the definition of what a hybrid meeting is from an interpretation point of view is being debated now. So we're in presently negotiating the new collective agreement. We're in mediation right now, and I cannot talk about the details, but I'm sure you can appreciate that the terms and conditions for interpreter and the definition of what a hybrid meeting is part of those negotiations. The contract for freelancer is expiring at the end of June, and the definition of what a hybrid meeting and how many hours and how many interpreter per session is also being the subject of negotiation. So in the coming weeks, we'll have more information, and we'll be set in terms of for a hybrid meeting. Is it when one person is not in the room? Is it when 50% are in the room? What is it? And then the number of hours. We'll be able to assess capacity and plan our schedule accordingly.
How many hours would you be working a day if you were an interpreter?
So it's a complex questions. So for a committee, for regular committee meetings where we need 3 interpreter, the interpreter pre-pandemic we're doing about 6 hours of interpretation per day. Because of the connective load associated with remote interpretation, and looking at what was happening around the world, we've reduced the 6 hours to 4 hours. But it varies but in general, you know, it's, let's say a committee meeting, it would be 3 interpreters, they would do 6 hours per week. So it's been reduced to 4 hours. So reduction of capacity by 20%.
Okay. 20 or 30%. Anyways, it's down considerable. Okay, and that's going to be maintained at 4 hours for how long? You don't know.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. At the moment, I cannot talk about details because the employer is Treasury Board Secretariat, and it's in negotiation, it's in mediation right now. So we're kind of, you know, we have to wait to see how it's going to conclude, so then we can really talk about it more publicly.
Okay. Now, one of the other things that came up, une des autres choses qui est sortie, c'était un dashboard de quelque.
One of the other things that came up was a dashboard that we could develop between our employees and yours to see what there is and where we are, what capacity is for a given day, so that when we're planning, perhaps, as you say, maybe not a month in advance, but at least a few days in advance, is this something that you would be prepared to do, to work on with us? Chair, yes. This is something that we could develop in a partnership with our colleagues from the House administration. Very well. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Okay. Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Ball and Madame La Liberté.
Now we'll go on to item number 4, increase to parliamentary exchange budget. I believe, Mr. Scheer, you had something on this one, or did you want to? Oh, sorry. Oui, Madame de Bellefeuille.
Oui, bien, Monsieur le Président, moi, je me demandais,
Chair, I was wondering, we had some conversations about this point. I would ask to suspend for some time so that we could talk to each other and come back to you after. Very well. How long do you need? I think 5 minutes should do it. Very well, then. So let's resume at 5:05. 5:05 p.m. We'll be back. Session is suspended.
a discussion that we suspended. We came back. Rather than go to a presentation, I believe Mr. McKinnon has a proposal for us, and then we'll go from there. Mr. McKinnon.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think that we're very conscious of the need for the Parliament of Canada to engage diplomatically, and we certainly don't want to see any diplomatic opportunity go unaddressed. And so with bearing in mind, that we also want to be responsible with the dollars available. I'd like to suggest a sort of no net new funds way of doing that, and that would be to authorize you, Mr. Chair, to find funds internally, reallocate if necessary, and address those diplomatic needs, visiting delegations, other important meetings that may be coming up between now and the end of the year, and at the same time invite the administration to come back with a new proposal for next year's budget, keeping in mind all of the factors that I know have been highlighted with respect to the challenges that are being faced.
Okay. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres commentaires?
Other comments?
All in favor? Oh, sorry. No, you're okay.
No,
Mr. Scheer, are you,
Well, yes.
you okay with that? Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. I just want to make sure everybody was fine. So everyone's, we have consensus then with that proposal? Very good. Okay. Well, now we'll move on to item number 5, the proposed 2023-2024 main estimates. We have Monsieur Saint-Georges, who is the Chief Financial Officer, along with Sylvie Lafontaine, Director, Decision Support and Financial Planning.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to present the proposed main estimates of the House of Commons for 2023-2024 for your approval. In accordance with the Parliament of Canada Act, the House of Commons must complete its expenditure estimates for the upcoming fiscal year and submit them to the Treasury Board for tabling along with the main estimates of the Government of Canada. It has been agreed that the estimates be submitted to the Treasury Board by December 15th, 2022.
Le budget proposé, c'est
The proposed estimates total $597.1 million. This represents an increase of $34.1 million compared to the main estimates for 2022-2023, which was at $562.9 million. Please note, the estimates do not include funding for the parliamentary exchanges. The adjustment of $34.1 million is broken down into 3 main categories of items, as shown on the table on the screen. First, initiatives approved by the board at $4.2 million. Second, increases related to the cost of living and inflation at $27.1 million. And third, $2.7 million for other items.
category. The board approved several initiatives found in row A through F, totaling $4.2 million. For example, last month you were presented with the 2023-2025 House of Commons Accessibility Plan, for which funding of $749,000 was approved. You'll find this initiative under Section 1D. Turning to the second category, cost of living and inflationary increases represent an overall adjustment of $27.1 $5.1 million. As shown in 2A, an annual adjustment to the members' and House officers' office budgets and travel status expense account have been made based on the adjusted CPI. This is in accordance with the December 2015 board decision. Under Category 2B is an additional item approved by the board for the impact of charging centrally the costs related to members' constituency office leases. The last two items are outlined in 2C and D and pertain to the members' sessional allowances and House administration salary adjustments. The third category, which represents an increase of $2.7 million, represents and relates to employee benefit plans and an actuarial evaluation adjustment to those pension plans. Mr. Speaker, the administration recommends that the board approve the proposed 2023-24 main estimates in the amount of $597.1 million. This concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions the board may have.
Any comments, questions et commentaires? I don't see any. Everyone's in accordance? Everyone's fine with this recommendation? I see heads shaking, so good. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Saint-Georges. Now we're going to take a few minutes and go in camera, or I'm sorry, we have Mr. Robert who would like to make a statement to us. Mr. Robert.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity to address the members of the Board of Internal Economy. 5.5 years ago, I was honored to be appointed Clerk of the House of Commons, the 13th since Confederation. Since I have assumed this duty, I have made it a point of honor to be sure that the administration provide the best services possible to all members of Parliament. My primary objective was to restructure the administration so as to better support members in the exercise of their duties, which are constantly changing. Duties as framers of legislation, as well as independent employers. After the Board of Internal Economy approved required adjustments, the administration develops a strategic plan to establish a centralized service pool which would be consistent and focused on satisfying the needs of members. This was our roadmap, and it was a source of several successes in recent years. The move from center block was made without any major incident. The members' orientation program was seriously reviewed and revised to better assist new MPs, and more recently, to provide better adapted services to help the transition for members who were leaving us. In reaction to the constraints imposed by the pandemic, immediate innovations were held to be able to hold hybrid sessions and electronic voting. Physical and computer changes to the security system improved the protection and safety of our members of Parliament as new risks appeared in the workplace. Source Plus and customer service teams were created to make it easier to access quality support. And we adjusted our relationship with you by holding regular briefings to better serve the Board of Internal Economy in the exercise of its responsibility of control. All of these initiatives and several others were successfully made and led thanks to the efforts of the administration, whose employees are totally engaged and proud of the work that they are doing on your behalf.
Building on the many successes of the strategic plan, we are about to launch the next one that will guide us in the coming years. The new plan has as its vision, one house, one team, une chambre, une équipe. This simple yet powerful vision reinforces our focus on client service and solidifies the administration's dedication to this goal. To further ensure its success, I believe the new strategic plan should be championed by someone who can carry it through from its beginning to its end. Given this reality, I feel that it is an appropriate time for me to step away. I'm announcing today that I will retire from the service of the House early in the new year, in January, on Friday the 13th. Though it has not been without its challenges, serving as your clerk has been an extraordinary privilege. I am most proud to have been part of such a remarkable team of multidisciplinary colleagues in the administration who embody our values of integrity, excellence, collaboration, and inclusion. Their steadfast dedication to supporting the House and the work of members, particularly in times of exceptional uncertainty, has driven our shared success. En travaillant comme une chambre, une équipe, je suis confiant.
Working as one house, one team, I am confident that this success will continue into the future.
What a great privilege it has been to serve you all, both individually and collectively, as Clerk of the House of Commons. It would be hard to imagine a better way for me to end my 42-year career on the Hill, starting in the library, then the House, before going to the Senate, and finally returning to the House as clerk. It has been quite a journey, one that has reinforced my admiration for our amazing parliamentary system at the heart of our democracy. Thank you for allowing me to make this decision public by announcing it to you first. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's not the right word. It's thank you for your years of service, not thank you for leaving us. But I believe, Mr. Holland, you've got a few words to say.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me say 42 years of service to this place is an extraordinary accomplishment that we and indeed our democracy owe you a tremendous debt for your service. Starting in the Library of Parliament and the House of Commons, then moving to the Senate, where you were the Senate clerk and where you have been since 2017, the clerk here, serving us admirably as we look to modernize the administration, and you've led that charge. I want to express my sincere appreciation on behalf of the government, and I'm certain on behalf of all parliamentarians for what you brought to the bricks and mortar of this place. You serve something that's bigger than all of us, which is the spirit of democracy. Something that it takes a lot of effort to hold up every day, and I really cannot express in strong enough terms my thanks. And I want to say, just even over the last couple of years, as we went through the pandemic, leading an administration that responded so nimbly to changing circumstances and having to deal with a pandemic and utilizing new technology and finding new solutions speaks to your capable leadership. 42 years, it's, as the Speaker has just stated, I don't think there are any words that could do proper justice to that level of service. But for all of your dedication to this place that we so collectively love, I want to say my deepest and most sincere thank you, my gratitude. And I know you. I know that you're going to continue serving this place in a different way as you continue to offer your perspective on how we can all do better and all better serve this place that we love. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and specifically thank you, Mr. Clerk.
D'autres commentaires? Any other comments? Mr. Julian.
Mais là, honnêtement, je suis un peu sur la...
Well, honestly, I'm in shock. I didn't see that coming, and I do want to add my voice to thank you for all of your work here in the House. The clerk is so important to manage all of the affairs of our democracy, and your efforts, your work day and night have been most appreciated. The work that the clerks and that the House administration do. I know that we will have an opportunity, Chair, to talk more about this in the days to come. I'm simply just reacting out of shock here, but I did want to thank you for your years of service and your work. Anybody else? Mr. Scheer.
Well, we would just, on behalf of the official opposition, recognize the years of service that you have given to both houses of Parliament. You have served in very high office in both from an administrative position, seeing the work that both senators and members of the House of Commons do on behalf of Canadians, and that is no easy task. I'm sure on either side of the Hall of Honor or in either side of, I guess, O'Connor Street, now that the two chambers are separated. So, you know, we recognize the contributions that you have made and certainly wish you all the very best in your retirement.
Thank you. Maintenant, nous allons continuer avec Madame de Bellefeuille.
And now we can continue with Madame de Bellefeuille. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Robert, Mr. Clerk, I would like to add my voice to my colleagues to thank you. 42 years of public service, that's investing a lot of one's life. That's a lot of sacrifice. You have devoted a great part of your life to serving the public, and that speaks volumes to you and who you are. You've seen changes in Parliament, and you've been part of history. You've been a part of history because we're now designing a new Parliament. You participated in this, and I want to thank you. It wasn't easy for you, and I know that. I did feel the emotion in your voice, because when you leave after having given so much, we don't really want to leave that much, but at some point, we have to leave someday because we have to think of ourselves. We have to take the time to travel, to be able to have a coffee in the morning without having to rush off to some meeting. We have to be able to live without stress. And I think the beautiful years ahead of you, you deserve them, to be able to take care of you and your loved ones and to spoil yourself, because what you have accomplished is really huge. It's something to devote one's life to the service of the public. Not many people around us are aware of the extent to which this is a sacrifice of one's private life. It has such impact on one's private life. You run into all kinds of trials in a career such as you've had, all kinds of obstacles. And you are ending with an intensity that would have been hard to forecast with this pandemic. So what I wish for you is, starting on January the 13th, you can walk away and spoil yourself, have fun, because you fully deserve it. Would anyone else like to speak? Perhaps I could say a few words.
To work very closely with, do you mind if I call you Charles? And it's a sad day for Parliament. It's a sad day for not only the House, but the Senate as well. The commitment that you've shown over the years has been outstanding. L'intérêt que tu as démontré.
Your interest that you have demonstrated, that I have seen firsthand, your interest in the members and in the institutions, goes beyond what anyone could imagine.
For individual members to make sure that they were able to do their jobs. And you wanted to see the process work. That was what was most important in the institution. Make sure that it worked well. That's something that there's a commitment there that I don't know anyone else who has that kind of, even MPs, are committed to what they're doing. But you were part of the institution. And I think that's something that will live on indefinitely, because it is part of what it is right now, and you're there. And I know the COVID-19 really gave us a different perspective on things, but you were very open and very supportive of staff and the MPs to make sure that we could keep our democracy working. And that's something that I think we should all be very appreciative of. Et même quand il y avait des difficultés.
And even when there were difficulties, your door was always open. You were always there. You were there to talk to us. You were there to lead us, to guide us, and to give us opinions. Sometimes we accepted them, sometimes we didn't, but most of the time we took your advice because it was good advice and good counsel, not only for MPs, not only for Speaker, but for the institution itself.
I just want to say that you've been here 42 years. I've only been working for you for the last 3 years now. It's been an honor. It really has been an honor and a privilege working with you. And you're going away. I'm not just losing a colleague. I'm losing a friend, but I'm sure we'll see each other quite often, but I just won't see you as often, I think. So I just want to wish you all the best in your retirement. And it's interesting choosing Friday the 13th as your departure date.
Well, the 13th clerk.
The 13th clerk on the Friday. Well, that makes a lot of sense now. But thank you for your 42 years of service, and especially your 42 years here at the House and the time that I had to spend with you working side by side with you. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we're going to go in camera, so we're going to take a few minutes, 5 minutes to go in camera. That's okay? I don't know. As soon as we... you.